Hello everyone. In today's video, I want to show you how having a turn or giving the turn to our opponent is going to win a game or lose a game or put our opponent in a Zugzwang. So let's see. It's an end game and we're using the concept of Zugzwang to try to win this. Now, if we only look at the king side of this position, we can see that here, if it is black's turn, what should black play? The pawn doesn't move. The king must move either to h6 or to g6, it doesn't matter, and then white can simply capture the pawn and have an extra pawn, right? So if we go back to the original position again, if we're only taking a look at the king side, okay, and we are considering that it is white's turn, what should white play? Then white pawn doesn't move and the white king must move, and whenever the white king moves to, it doesn't matter, black is going to capture the white pawn and will be able to win this game. So let's go back to the original position. What does this mean? This means that if I have the white pieces and it's my turn, I want the queen side moves to finish with black's turn, because here if black doesn't want to move away the king and lose the pawn, it means that black will move the queen side pawns. Now, but when the queen side pawns moves finish, black will have to move away. But what if on the queen side the moves finish with my turn? Then I will have to move my king away and black is going to win the game. So it's very important that when it's my turn, I make sure that on the queen side, the pawn moves are going to finish with black's turn, so that black has to leave the pawn whenever it's their turn after the pawn moves are up, and I will win the game. But how to do this? How to achieve this? It's not easy to calculate all the lines. Should I move this pawn? Should I move the b pawn once? Should I move the b pawn twice perhaps? Which one's working? Now, there are some general rules that we can follow. Okay, so if you want to have more options of whether on that side, on the queen side, the pawn moves will finish with your turn or with your opponent's turn, it's better usually to keep the pawn that's on the second rank to the last, not to move it in the beginning, but keep it to the last, to move it at the end. Why? Because if we keep that pawn to the end, then we will keep our option of moving this pawn once or twice, which is gonna matter. So whenever you need it, you can push it once. Whenever you need it, you can push it twice. But you keep that option to the end when you can see what is best for you. Here, for example, by just knowing this general rule, I can know that if I push the the A pawn, this is going to be good for white. Now let's try all the options that black can have here. So of course black is not pushing the b pawn because we can simply capture that, and okay, already the black pawn's moves finished on the queen side, and black needs to leave this pawn as well, and definitely we're capturing the pawn and winning the game. Let's go back. So here, of course, black is going to move the pawn that's on a7. Now let's see, what if the pawn moves once or jumps twice? Let's say the pawn moved twice. So we need to finish. The pawn moves on the queen side with black's turn. This means that here white can simply play pawn to b3, and the queen side pawn moves already finished. There are no safe moves that black can do there. Okay, they might give up their pawn, but that's not safe anymore. And so it will mean that now black needs to move away their king, and we're going to capture the pawn and win. We will see later how can we win with this extra pawn, but let's go back and see another possibility. What if we push the a pawn, but black doesn't push their pawn twice, but pushes it once? Now, another place where we should make a decision with white. Should we push our pawn once or twice? And this is what was important when we let this push to the end, because here we can decide, is pushing the pawn once good for us or twice good for us, because it is gonna make a difference. If one of them is not good, the other one is gonna be good. So let's see, if I push the pawn once, what can black play? black can finish the queenside pawn moves with my turn by pushing the a pawn. Making the pawn symmetric usually also is favorable for the side that's doing that. So when the pawns are symmetric, now it's going to be white's turn, and again white has to move away and white is going to lose. So let's go back. This means that we're not pushing our pawn once, but we're pushing it twice. Now, another thing that's advantageous for us is when we have such a position and black has to push any of the pawns, and it doesn't matter. This is also good for white because, again, it's always good to have options. Just like it's good to keep a pawn on the second rank or seventh for black, because you're having options of pushing it once or twice. It's also good to have this position where your opponent is pushing a pawn and you have the choice to push or to capture, because again, you're in control of what's going to happen, who's going to have the turn. If you want the moves to finish with your turn, then you can just capture because your opponent has to capture back and it's going to be your turn. But we don't want that in this position. We want our opponent to have the move. So in this case, I don't capture and I push. So I'm in control of the options or of who's going to have the turn here. So I push the pawn. Now on the queen side, on the king side, black has to move away the king, and we're going to capture the pawn and win this game. Now let's see how can we win this game. We can win this game by using our pawn as let's say, what should I say? I forgot the word. I can use it as a time gaining tool. Okay, because if I just leave that pawn and move to the queen side with my king, black is gonna waste time and go and capture that pawn, and meanwhile I will be able to go and to the queen side and capture the black pawns. So here, okay, because of course black cannot leave the white pass pawn. Sooner or later he has to go and capture, so without wasting time they should go and capture. And definitely we're moving to the queen side, and already we're very much ahead of the black king, and not only one pawn, but we can even capture 2 pawns and win this game. Of course we should pay attention that okay, we don't end this game in a stalemate because we have 2 extra pawns. We should be careful, especially if the black king is moving to the corner. But that's true for every position. Whenever we have extra material and our opponent doesn't have any pieces, we should always make sure that we're extra careful not to end the game in a stalemate. So let's go back to do a fast recap of what we did in this video. Is the following. So to put our opponent in a Zugzwang, to make it their turn, we needed to end the queenside pawn moves with their turn. So, and to do that, we need to remember that we always have to keep our options. Okay, so that will be a fast way of doing the best moves, even without much calculation. So here, without much calculation, I can just push the A pawn and then think what to do with the B pawn, push it once or twice. That's what we did here. Now, I can say absolutely the same thing if we just flip the chessboard and say that it's black's turn here, and black wants to finish the pawn moves with white's turn, because if it's white's turn only on the king side, white's gonna move away, black's gonna capture the pawn and win the game. So if we go back to the initial position and we say it's black's turn, black wants to finish the pawn moves on the queen side with white's turn. So what black needs to do is move one of these pawns. And which one to move? The same thing goes for black. Black should keep the option of moving the pawn that's on the 7th rank, second from black side, should keep it, and for later, for example, push it once or twice, we should keep that for later and just push the pawn that has already moved, just by default. I know that this should be the correct move, because now again, if white pushes the pawn twice, we can push the pawn once and the pawn moves finish, it's white's turn, white moves away and loses the game. And let's go back. If white had pushed once, we were gonna push twice. And here, whenever white pushes any pawn, it's good for black, because now black has the option of either just pushing or capturing, depending on what black wants. Here, black wants to end the game with white's turn. So, and the pawn moves on the queen side with white's turn. So black just pushes the pawn And here white's just gonna have to move away. Black captures, and again black is gonna use this pawn as an extra as extra time for white to capture that pawn. Meanwhile, we will be on the other side of the chessboard capturing the pawns and winning the game.